Hey guys, and welcome to the last time we have to do this long ass format because it's Untier Talk, and what we do is we recap these big weeks. But PUPL only has 6 teams, which means only 5 weeks of this, and I'm just about done doing hour-long recaps. Ajad loves it though.
Love you have to love speaking for an hour for two people to listen to.
You're cutting out a lot, like a lot. So
Yeah,
I'll get
you love to see that. Love to hear.
no. Still, I mean, we heard what you said, but you might want to fix your mic while I start it up
Go
because
for it.
yeah, it just keeps phasing out. This was a week that everything came down to the wire. All 4 teams could have made playoffs, and we know who's in now. It's the Dens strongly in first, and in the semifinals, it's Victor Bells versus Kinglers. But every team could have made it. We're still just going to go through from the replays, but there's definitely going to be like context behind all these games and the like for how they mattered for who's making playoffs. First series is Mischievous versus the Dens. This could have mattered a lot if the Mischievous had managed to pull out a tie or a win. But since the Dens won, a lot of these games ended up becoming slightly less consequential. But first game is Dibs versus Fellaburn, and that's kind of why I bring it up because I think this was the only game this week that actually didn't matter at all for anyone's playoff spot. So Dibs ended up bringing like a more fun team with a Driftblim, and he said the Stunfisk was a Z Surf set because that kills Mudsdale. Um, Whereas Fellaburn kind of has this more fun Crabominable team, still like relatively serious. He might have actually intended to bring this if the game mattered, but yeah, a little more of a chill game. And unfortunately, not a ton can be said outside of like Dibs kind of like did not have anything in this matchup except for the Driftblim that mostly 6-0'd Fellaburn, and the Driftblim got crit. So it didn't. It was not able to do that. I'm not sure to what
Dibs versus Felly, yeah.
yeah, Dibs versus Felly. I'm not sure to what extent Driftblim could break Electros, but it did look a lot like if Dibs didn't get crit, then the Driftblim was just going to win the game straight up. So
I personally that I think was what Dibs had to play for. I didn't generally agree with how he played the early game. Like, I don't think if you don't really have a crab resist, you need with something crab-y.
yeah, for sure. He said he didn't like what he did either.
So yeah, there's already sort of delve deeper into that, but yeah, I do think that it would have been interesting. Is that
Yeah, no, we're totally losing you. I have not weird. I don't know. Your mic is doing something. No, I'm losing like everything. You're like completely missing entire sentences and stuff. If you want to try to figure that out, I guess I'll just keep moving on. We don't. This is Untier Talk. We don't take the time to like fix the technical issues before we start or anything. So yeah, that's just how it be sometimes. That was just like a kind of a fun little inconsequential game. I wish the Dibs gimmicks got a little bit more to do, but alas. Next game would be Osh versus Chill Shadow. This one was just really odd. Chill Shadow brought a really odd team, in my opinion. Like a lot of this team just confuses me. It's like a Kanga Spikes, but a really slow one with an odd-no Sableye defensive core, which is just, I don't know, not something you really see every day. And he got like a lot of early game momentum due to just leading Mesprit and OKOing Osh's Mudsdale lead turn 1 with Icy and Mesprit. And then even then, Osh just still won really strongly because he eliminated Chill Shadow's fighting resists, and then all Chill Shadow had left was like the mons that didn't resist fighting, so he just cleaned with Primate. And like I don't think Chill Shadow necessarily had the best late game play. Like he let Sableye and Mesprit die like super early as like very first things. Like literally by turn 7, his Sableye and Mesprit were dead, and Primeape already practically won the game, which is just not what you want to do. But like his team just didn't make a lot of sense. I don't know.
Sacking Sableye was a bad play. On Osh's team, the only 2 Stealth Rockers could have been Mudsdale or Alola Slash. There's no reason for Mesprit to have rocks on this team. So, yeah, that was a big misplay.
Yeah, it was just not prepared. But I also like. I think even if he played it better, this just would have gone poorly because his team is just so weak. Like, I do not understand it, and I'm assuming it's an Arusius thing because that's just like the guy who's making these weird teams. But like this one, just I don't know.
This one stinks.
This one was just silly. LST versus Charmflash. This game got me yelled at in Discord. That's fun. LST brought Cryogonal, finally. Someone used it. Crazy, I know. This is like the first showcase it's really had it all, and it actually did a lot of work. So that's the fun part of the game. That's what you can take away. Cryogonal's pretty scary when used correctly. The flip side is this was kind of a close game. LST having like a pretty offensive Cryogonal Spikes team, Charmflash having a bit of a fatter Spikes plus type Null team. And ultimately it gets to like this close late game situation, and LST gets crit and loses.
Yeah, pretty much. I think Charmflash, especially the Haunter on Charmflash's team, got ridiculously lucky in like the mid-game circumstances. But I do maintain that LST could have played it a bit better, such that hacks wouldn't have been a factor.
I agree. LST got into a really good position. Charmflash basically, instead of sacking something and in order to preserve his type null, he let his type null die, which to me still just is not how this should have been played. Just because without type null, you just lose to Cryogonal. Like it is your Cryogonal stop. You have to keep it alive. But he risked a roll which LST was able to get. Not super in his favor either. Not super in Charmflash's favor. Which meant that Cryogonal was basically going to clean the game until it got crit by Charmflash's Scarf Haunter, and that crit plus winning the speed tie versus LST's Scarf Primeape allowed Charmflash to just kind of take it anyway. That's that's the summary. And I agree. Like hacks didn't need to necessarily be a factor. LST could have sacked his Mudsdale and then not needed to risk a crit on the switching at all. But also, in theory, this shit like basically the crit was the only way he lost this. So. Really,
yeah. I mean, it was unfortunate because crits like suck, but in my opinion, you have to be efficient there. You have to take the 100% route rather than the 92 point whatever chance that you don't get crit. You know what I mean? So
I fully agree. I fully agree, but I do also feel bad for the Mr. Vistas because like they ended up as the last place team, by a very close margin. But they were like, despite ending up in last place, with all being said and done, like they could have easily been making playoffs instead, and they just like were literally one game off. I think tie breaking for playoffs or something like that, and
wow.
They just had like they were the team that just got so much like annoying BS, and for this last week to end 3-5 with a game like that. It just never looks fun for them, Never looks fun.
For sure.
So I gotta.
Yeah. He's got a thing in his throat.
Yeah, I don't know. Poe versus Gondra. I only just noticed Gondra played on Gonder. I didn't even know. I didn't even know he had that all. Anyway. Um, Poe had uh, an electric spam team. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Sorry, guys, I'm very tired. Poe had this like interesting little electric spam with spikes. It's like kind of a volt plus spikes, which I thought was really fun. And Gondra brought another kind of like. I'm pretty sure that he's the one who's been bringing a lot of Caracosta, or one of those people. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but anyway, Gondra brings another Caracosta. I'm pretty sure that's been like a constant pick from him. So they both kind of have these like fun teams. I think pretty much anything with Caracosta is fun. But I don't know. Do you want to summarize the game? I feel like I'm summarizing all the games and then letting you talk.
Yeah. So I actually kind of like Gondra's team a bunch. I think the Caracosta fits really well on it, but I do think Poe didn't necessarily play an efficient endgame in this one, to be quite honest. I think he could have done something with I think it was the Rotom in the endgame, but he missed a Blizzard, and then I think he switched into something as well, which was unfortunate, given that Rotom was his main speed control and then way of like checking Leafeon and whatever. So missing the Blizzard was really key. Although he should have sacked something in the late game. Let me just try and find the exact thing that he should have been sacking.
What happened is in a very Oras type situation, Gondra has an SD Leafeon. Poe needs to revenge it with his Scarf Rotom, and then Rotom just ends up missing the Blizzard and dying. And I'm not sure. I need to run a calc to see how much that Blizzard mattered. Rotom Frost versus Caracosta.
I think he played a bit better.
So the Blizzard. Hang on.
Yeah.
Poe missed a Blizzard, and like, even if Poe had hit the Blizzard, Blizzard does, let's see, 42 to 49 versus Caracosta. Yeah, and this is minus Spadef Caracosta too. So Caracosta would have been able to come in on the Blizzard, Shell Smash, kill Rotom and Skunk. No, but then Primeape doesn't kill Mesprit. So yeah, I'm pretty sure even with other fuck-ups, I think the Blizzard miss basically just ended the game, unless he then missed versus Caracosta too.
Yeah, the big problem was that when the misplay that I was talking about was that when he was 1v1, when the Leafeon set up the SD, he stayed in with Mudsdale rather than sacking the Skuntank, which in my opinion was a crucial misplay, because essentially sacking the Mudsdale meant that the Primeape just had so much room to work in, as opposed to if he didn't, sack the Mudsdale, he could have come in, revenge killed the Rotom, and then also been in a solid position when it comes down to the Primeape 1v1 in the last position. So Poe could have played a slightly more efficient endgame. He did get lucked, and you can't sort of take that away from him. But yeah, he could have made it a bit closer for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the wrong. It was definitely the wrong sack. But either way, he would have had to go into Rotom and try to revenge kill. And either way, like, his win con was hitting 2 Blizzards, which is not hugely like that's a.
Not necessarily, because if you think about it, the Leafeon has to take Aftermath Recoil as well, and if it lives the initial Leaf Blade, it gets another Sucker Punch off. So you could potentially see the Volt Switch Revenge Kill coming into play, which would have been big.
Yeah, okay, because then Volt Switch could kill. So yeah, that would have just been purely better. You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think between these two games, is a little lesson. Like, some unfortunate shit can happen, but there's ways to minimize hacks, and this was kind of a case where people got punished for not minimizing as much as they could. So one of life's little lessons, especially when Open comes out, because we've already seen several just unlucky Open losses, and that can be one way to help. Tricking versus Shane Gould, this game was just really stupid. Shane Gould ended up getting just, I believe, 6-0'd in a Butterfree sweep. Yeah, 5-0'd with Butterfree sweeping 5 Mons, and that wouldn't have like Butterfree swept because Shane Gould brought a bulky Hitmonchan, who I believe the moveset was Toxic, Drain Punch, Rapid Spin, Mach Punch. So Butterfree could set up a sub and Quiver Dance for free as Shane Gould tried to Toxic it, and then get to sleep something, which is like unheard of perfect setup opportunities for Butterfree. It's not normally this good, but like that was just the worst set he could have possibly had for this matchup, and then just like fucking Butterfree, man.
Yeah. So yeah, initially when I was looking at Shane's team, I thought it was Assault Vest, Hitmonchan as like the special meta check, and then he has like a Death Mawile with Stealth Rocks as his physical meta check. That made sense in my but as the game got like on, like it was clear that it wasn't either of those sets. So I don't particularly like Shane's. I like Shane's like team, but I don't like the composition of this of that team. Whereas, yeah, and he got really unlucky with the Hitmonchan set just being perfect Butterfree fodder. I do think Butterfree. I can't judge this game really because Butterfree Vivillon-esque in this matchup, and I can't tell if that's just because Butterfree won or if like it's just like, you know, this is the fun time I've seen it and it did work.
Yeah, the thing is, this was like really perfect conditions for Butterfree. You have one of the few mons that it can like no holds barred completely set up on without ever needing to use its sleep. Shane didn't really have a good sleep absorber or anything, which teams often don't now that Lilligant is gone. And his rocker, like his team was not in a position to set up rocks and then pressure with them a lot. It was not difficult for Tricking to remove. And all three of those things combined are going to be like, yeah, Butterfree's going to do a lot. In all honesty, it's probably not the worst, just because teams will not be prepped for it, but what you need to see is like versus an average team that's not crazy, like not just really completely pressured by a Butterfree squad, what's it gonna do? Because this is not its average condition. That being said, like they both brought pretty offensive teams. I think they were both fun, weirdly fun in fact, since this game, at least for Shane, definitely mattered a lot. I guess Shane's is a bit more serious, but yeah, it also comes out looking a little weird. Like you said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just see Butterfree does more work in this game than I've ever seen Scyther ever do. So take that as you will.
I mean, Scyther's not meant to sweep though. It's like saying, "Oh, I've seen Butterfree get more Quiver Dance sweeps than Haunter." Like, yeah, Haunter isn't a Quiver Dance sweeper. Anyway, let's just
we shouldn't be
jump into
getting into the
Victory Bells versus Haunters. It's hard to talk about the overall game situation right now, so let's just go into the individual games. Robert Alphonse versus Kushalos. I thought this one was very funny because Robert Alphonse specifically like subbed himself in to play Kushalos, and this game was just really odd. They both brought Spike's offenses, but Robert Alphonse's was like a Frostlass Spike's offense with Circle Throw to rack stuff up, whereas Kushalos's was like a more traditionally offensive one with like Quillfish and then a Volt Switch Mon, like multiple pivot Mons with Volt Switch and Parting Shot, plus Dodrio and Guzzlord as wall breakers. Like his was definitely the more regular Spike's team, in my opinion. So like really weird, like not quite a mirror matchup, but like mirror concepts. And then he kind of just bodied Robert. Like,
I'd say the key thing that I saw in this game was that Kush was really Gerda weak from the outset, and then Robert did bring Gerda. So it was like his outlet could have been Throw, given that if he got spikes up, the Silvally Fairy is going to be the switch in more times than most, or the Quillfish. So, you know, like, and you're getting 3 circle throws on Guzz, you're going to get them on Eel and on Metang. So Throw looked actually really good in this matchup. but he just got, you know, he never had the longevity in terms of his stealth rocks and spikes to really put Kush under pressure.
Yeah, I think that lack of pressure is really what's key because Kush's spikes was a lot more about offensive momentum. You've got parting shots of Volley Fairy, you've got Volt Switch Electros, whereas Roberts was really like, get my spikes up and then try to just start phasing things with throw. And that game plan is just like, those two game plans don't go well together if you're the one trying to do like a slower setup thing.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, though, I don't think Kush's team is really that bad versus Girder. Like, it's not completely safe versus Girder, but it's not the kind of team where I would have changed anything. Like, you've got a Silvally Fairy in the short term as like a switch in. You've got Spikes and Quillfish to keep it chipped. You've got Dodrio is a probable late game cleaner that's like not walled by it. I mean,
yeah, I mean it's okay, but still,
Girder can be played as a win con, but it's not like a free win con or anything like that. I don't think it's the worst.
Yeah.
And like that kind of being able to offensively pressure something like Girder came into play because Throw just couldn't get anything started. Incompatible game plans, kind of how I see it. As opposed to this next game, Katut versus FLCL, where FLCL like brought full stall and just like had the good stall matchup and won.
Not really much. To
yeah,
say
this is the one for Katut. This is the one for Katut that people were wondering about. Andy's out of open already, so yikes.
Yeah.
Not that he's the only one though.
Yeah, there's been a lot of upsets in open. Me. But yeah, I think Katut's main way of winning this game was the Dramper, and then the Dramper just didn't work, and then he lost. Simple.
Yeah, he blamed a toxic miss, but that was very no.
Yeah, I mean the game was over by then, so I don't buy it.
No, it's just like I keep saying. I think you need to freeze different teams because this was like some kind of weird fat Scyther thing that wasn't actually that strong, and yep, didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. Rob Jr. versus TJ. Which game was this? Actually,
TJ won this, didn't he?
I'm pretty sure TJ won, but I don't remember a lot about it. Rob Jr.'s team actually just completely falls out of my mind. It looks something like the most generic team, but like from 3 metas ago when we didn't have Frostlash or Quillfish. You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly what would get brought to every team, to every game in that meta, but I'm kind of skipping through it as fast as I can now. TJ brought the...
Curse Body Jerson came in clutch.
Yeah, TJ brought...
Is that Kennedy Electros?
Yeah, okay. What I was trying to say, so TJ brought the Jellicent Crabominable core of like more relatively interesting mons that you don't see on every team, and Jellicent just like really doing heaps of work by managing to stall out Girder and Skuntank and Electros, 3 mons just running super effective coverage and kind of showing why the Fat set is now like such a clutch mon. And he also brought Coil, Zapcan, and Electros in order to chip Rob Jr.'s Girder. How quaint. Yeah, okay. I can't believe I forgot this, because this game was actually wild. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean...
He brought Subcrab, Coil, Zapcan, and Eel, and like the full fat Culper Gleam Jellicent. Like, this is whack.
Yeah, I mean, the Curse Body was clutch. That is what I've been trying to say. Curse Body, like, without the Curse Body shenanigans, I don't think TJ won this game.
Yeah, I remember. It was this and one other game in quick succession where I was like, guys, is Curse Body the next no guard?
Yeah, facts.
Because it kept being like, Jellicent's gonna get 2 KO'd. Wait, he can't hit the same move again. Well, I guess we're fine now. It was just weird. Like, Rob Jr. started out looking really hot, and then between surprise zap cannons and cursed bodies, I don't even think he like made a significant misplay anywhere. It was just like, sometimes these things happen. Yeah, literally, if Skunk just hadn't gotten cursed bodied on that one turn, then the game would have ended like 50 turns earlier in Rob Jr.'s favor.
Yeah, for sure. Just an unfortunate scenario, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Lighthouses versus Raspberry. This game I thought was funny. Like,
Yeah.
Raspberry kind of brought a very basic looking team that looks like, oh, this is all a bunch of...
hazards control?
Yeah, it's like, it looks like, oh, hey, it's a bunch of good mons. It looks pretty reasonable and everything. Oh, wait, there's no hazard control at all. Multiple mons that, like, are specifically good because they keep switching in and out. Like, multiple, like, you've got Regen, you've got multiple U-turn users, you've got Guzzlord that likes to come in a lot, Regirock. Like, this is so hazards weak, it's crazy. And Lighthouse is literally... like sacked a lot of stuff very early on, like put himself in an awkward position just to get a lot of hazards up so he could win the game. So like it looked kind of close, like it looked like a very close 1-0, but it really wasn't because Lighthouse has just had such a good game plan because Raspberry just had no hazards control.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like how Lighthouse has played. I think he could have played the boot ops, the Dramper, and the Frostlass much better to make it like a bigger gap, so that it was visible that, oh my god, Lighthouse is going to win this game easily. I think Gerda and Dramper on their own should have won this game, basically. Like, there should be no reason why that
Plus
isn't the case. Like, Tangela yeah. So, yeah. I mean...
Don't get me wrong, I don't think it was clean, but I don't think it ever had to be because he was pretty much very safe. Like... I don't know where like this game plan could have not worked because the late game girder was just going to be very solid.
But here's the thing: like, if you got multiple spike layers, you know, he could spin with his Kabu on the Tangela bait. Like, he had Dramper to come in on the Tangela as well. Like, he had so many things that could have like worked. But
it could have been played differently, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of by turn 10, you've got rocks up, you can spike you've got rocks up, you're gonna be able to get at least one spike, and the Mesprit is already at 20%. These hazards aren't being removed, and Girder like literally cleans everything else. I just don't think it ever mattered that he didn't do much.
Yeah.
Then again, we were even saying you have to play it like safe and make sure you're minimizing the possibility that you get hacked. But like, even then, at what point in the game would any hacks have taken out the girder, which is literally all he needed to win? Like, nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it might be just me being a bit like not petty, but like, you know, a bit like anal with these types of things, you know, like a bit too like nitpicky. But I mean, yeah, I think there's not really much Lighthouse could have done a bit more to bridge the gap, but you know, and he ended up winning, so there's not really much to criticize.
Yeah. Next game is Alcyone versus Sam I Am. This game was huge because it was the last game of the week, and who won determined who would go to playoffs. If Sam won, then it would have been the Haunters, who Sam is a part of, because that would have made the Haunters tie the week instead of losing. But instead, Alcyone won, so the Haunters lost, which is what let the Kinglers slip into playoffs. And I gotta say, this was just a sloppy game from Sam. Unfortunately, I feel bad to say it because he also felt when I managed him last year for the Drampas, he also had like a really sloppy loss. Like there it was much more of like an outright, you just straight up like fully choked a win, as opposed to just played sloppy and lost the game that could have gone either way. So I feel bad that this kind of happened twice, but basically like they both brought very offensive teams kind of wearing each other down pretty early, but then Sam made a very basically he was facing a Scarf Mesprit, and he let his Scarf Skunk had to die much earlier to remove hazards, so his AV Lantern had to be the resist. But then he played the Lantern really poorly. He switched into Mesprit, and then he Volt switches out immediately instead of staying in the Scald and like actually take on the Mesprit, and then he never Healing Wished the Lantern. So he just lost the Scarf Mesprit because his check, he just let it like die for no reason.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think in his head he might have been thinking, "Oh, I have CB Ape, so I can easily do what 60 or 50 or whatever it is with U-turn on the Mesprit." But I don't think he accounted too much the Scarf Mesprit, and especially one that Alcyon played very well. I think.
Really, you thought he wouldn't?
Forcing.
You thought he wouldn't expect it to be Scarf?
No, I'm thinking that from a team building perspective, he didn't really consider Scarf too much, given that he has a CB8. Like that personally, I think he put like almost like a false sense of security when it comes to Mesprit. Oh, I can just check it with Primate on demand or whatever. I have Primate and Skunk, for example, and I'll be fine. And I can also U-turn on it with my own Mesprit. But I think that might have led to his downfall, especially when it came down to how Alcyon played his hazards. He kind of forced the Skuntank to come in and do the defogging, and then he had to sack it essentially to get the hazards off. And then by that time, he doesn't really have like a proper Mesprit check. As you said, it was the Lantern. So yeah, I think he could have played it a bit differently, but I think Alcyon played exceptionally well to get into that.
You're starting to just you're like spitting into the mic, and then it started to cut out again. So maybe he just doesn't like you. Maybe he just doesn't like the way you're treating it. Anyway, yeah, I think Alcyon just like played a good game plan. He sacked multiple Mons very early to set up rocks and spikes, and basically forced Sam I Am to defog with the Scarf Skuntank. And once you're switching into rocks and spikes and defogging with the Scarf Skuntank, it's pretty much dead. So yeah, it died for defogging. That was the main Scarf Mesprit resist, and then after that, he just had to play the Scarf Mesprit well enough. And Sam could have made it back if he'd played his Lantern more carefully, but he didn't. So Alcyon didn't really face much like resistance to his game plan. It kind of just got executed like exactly how he wanted it to, and that was the game.
No ice on Sam.
For sure. So the final series for SM, Tasker versus Gum. Tasker brought this was like a fun team. This was a genuinely like what is Tasker even using? It's an Auroras Pinsir team, both of which have seen like very very little usage.
Especially Pinsir.
Yeah, especially Pinsir gets like no usage for a mon that's like mostly fine, but kind of just hard to ever use or justify. And I don't think he had like a great matchup or anything, but for the most part, he kind of just played better than Gum, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Tasker does. He has an offensive style of team, and he outplays his opponent. That's how he like got so good and so much notoriety in the PE community, is by doing exactly that. I think like he's getting back to that form of old where he used to bring offense and then just murder the opponent.
Yeah, he made multiple good doubles. There was one point where he just stayed in predicting Gum to try to be more offensive in double. Like he had a lot of good hard reads, and not everything worked out. There were a couple times where like he tried to make a read and it wasn't right, but he didn't get punished for it very hard. Like there was one point where he switched into Quillfish, predicting Gum to I think go Hitmonchan, and Gum instead went Metang. Like, okay, that's unfortunate you got it wrong, but all you're doing is switching into a Metang. That's relatively not a huge consequence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he just played better. Rip Gum. Gum could have made stuff happen, especially since Caracosta was definitely a noticeable threat to Tasker's team. Like the way he beat Caracosta eventually was by chipping it to 12% and then killing it with hail over 2 turns. Like that's when the mon is pretty scary for your team, but it just couldn't happen because Tasker was just playing real well. So props to him.
Sure.
Yeah, I wish we had the sheet, but we'll have the sheet for when we record next week and be able to go over player records. But I'm pretty sure like he started out pretty poorly, but I think he ended positive with this. Yeah. I believe. I'm not certain.
I think so. He won his last 2 games, I think. So yeah, he should be positive.
Yeah, so good for him. Chloe versus J-Mash. This game was really stupid.
Let's not
Apparently,
talk about this game.
yeah,
Let's not do
for
it.
what it's worth, apparently J-Mash thought that his team was out, which they're not, and he's in playoffs now. And then there was just a bunch of really dumb hacks, like really, really dumb hacks, and we're not going to go very deep into it. But the thing to take away is that J-Mash won, which is pretty big for the whole, like, Kinglers beating Octilleries specifically by 6-2.
Yeah.
Because, like, they needed to beat the Octilleries. Only beating them 5-3 would have put them into a tiebreak situation. But because they beat them 6-2, they managed to just bypass the tiebreaker, go right into the playoff spot. So all those wins really mattered.
Crucial.
Ziri versus Ryza. Ryza's team, we've seen it in some earlier week from someone. This was your team?
This is my team. Yeah, I have no idea how or where. I assume one of the Italians passed it to him. But yeah, it's my team. It's for Death Bulk Up Girder.
Yeah, okay.
That team, Double Dog, that you didn't like.
It didn't have a girder.
A Double Dog.
Yeah, I know it's Double Dog, but why do you say Spadef Bulk Up Girder?
Oh, I meant Spadef Bulk Up Gramble.
Oh, Gramble. Okay, I didn't realize it was Spadef. The set was Spadef Bulk Up. Yeah, so he brought this team. I did not like his matchup very much, but yeah, no buts.
Made it work.
I don't. I think he played it mostly okay. But I think his matchup really held him back. He got honestly, I think if he hadn't crit the Tangela, the game wouldn't have even come down to look close to the point where people thought the freeze mattered. Late game, 3 mons versus 3 mons. Ziri ends up freezing Ryza's Electros, which some people said mattered, but I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure Ziri just won anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. It was unfortunate.
Like I think it looked,
like to see game.
But like I think it only even looked that close because Ryza's Stoutland crit Ziri's Tangela into the point where Toxic killed it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's one of them ones where just hack sort of fades the lines on. Like you don't know who's winning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think.
But like he had a really hard time.
In the grand scheme of things.
With like Ziri's fat core, like the Tangela just.
Yeah.
Really screwed with his team. There's no leech immunity. Rocks just kind of whittled away at everything, and only 2 mons could break Tangela. One of which was the Swanna that did not really get to do much at all.
Yeah, Swanna should have been doing a lot more if Ryza wants, but yeah, that didn't end up happening. So. Ziri ended up winning.
I mean, okay. Don't get me wrong, because I just want to clarify. I did do good early game work. Like early game, it does 92% of the Silvally and kills the Sandslash, but also it's dead by turn 7 and rocks are up, so you're not removing them. And then like late game, it wasn't there to contribute when it would have been nice. That's kind of what I meant because it did nothing. Isn't really fair.
Yeah. Put it this way: if he'd healing wished it, I think that might have sourced up the game a little bit. But he's not. He was in a position where it was either Mesprit or Swanna, and he kind of needed. So it was kind of a bit messy at that point.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of messy games, Jonago versus TSR. This was a weird game to look at because I genuinely don't know what either player was really trying to do, and in the end when TSR won, I don't really know like why. It really felt like they both just hit buttons.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would put this game down to. It just felt like a button smashing for a lot of it. Yeah,
Jonago was like, man, I choked. I don't even know what he choked for. I don't even know what he was trying to do. Like,
yeah.
It's a hard game to go over because they both kind of just did some things and one player won. And in this case, it was TSR. Yeah, weird stuff from both of them. Telenet versus Serene Grace. Also a game we really should not say much of. Telenet brought the same stall team almost same stall team that he spammed this a lot during like PU Ladder Tour and other tournaments. Like we've seen it over and over. I think the Guzzlord with this set is a bit new, but otherwise it's the same team. It's not that good. Like it wins. It wins if they're not prepared for stall, and that's it. And Serene Grace was fine, and he won the game because the stall team just was not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, he got frozen in the late game. I don't know how much it mattered.
It didn't. It literally did not matter that he got frozen because it couldn't. Yeah. It was the Omastar freezing the Guzzlord, but the Guzzlord could not kill the Omastar. If it phased the Omastar with Dragon Tail, any of Serene Grace's Mons would have killed the Guzzlord, and then Mesprit would have Healing Wished Omastar. And if he did anything else, like it doesn't even matter. So, yeah. I mean, I really this team should not have been used, and I'm upset that it got used because like this game mattered a lot. Bring better shit.
Yeah, I mean, if the one thing you do is if you're playing Talena, you don't bring stuff that's weak to stall. You just don't do it.
No.
It could have happened. It could have happened, but he didn't. Like people just don't bring stuff weak to stall less Talena. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Talena was even like subbed in. I don't think they were prepared for Talena. It was originally Gunnar Rohan, and Talena was subbed in. And my guess is that like the team that they had Gunnar using, for whatever reason, Talena didn't want to use it or didn't have access to it, so he just like fell back on this team that he liked. But you gotta be more prepared when you sub people in because that's just a big yikes, you know. So. Yeah. That's it for Oras. Not Oras. SM. We're moving into Oras.
Yep.
What is this? Eternally versus Jerry? Yeah, Eternally versus Jerry. Also kind of a clicky button game, to be honest.
I honestly don't think so. I think Jerry played this one with a lot of like deep foresight. He played this game super well, in my opinion.
Really? I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think clicky button is always like. I know it always has a negative connotation. I don't think it's always a bad thing because he basically didn't need to do much more to win. I think it Eternally didn't have like a great matchup or a great idea of how he should have played the matchup. So Jerry basically was able to just hit the basic buttons and get the basic kills, but it didn't feel like there was a long-term plan from either players as much as just, I'll just keep killing his Mons because I can, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mean that to be a slight on Jerry because I don't think he played it wrong or badly, like really anywhere.
Yeah, I think the thing is that Jerry's team, initially at team preview, I didn't have the most faith in him to like pull off the matchup. It looked like a very 50-50 matchup. But by like turn 10 or like turn 15 or whatever, by the time Drifnum died, he had a noticeable advantage. Like the advantage was there, and it kind of felt like, okay, all he needs to do is close out the game, and he did that very well in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the advantage was always there though, because like his Mons just all broke Eternaly's team really well. Like Servine was really annoying, Driflim was really annoying. None of them individually are gonna like totally stop, but I feel like all together, all Jerry had to do was like, I'm just gonna hit my breaking buttons, and then your whole team's like already broken up, and that was really.
See, the thing is, yeah, I don't completely agree with that honestly, because like each individual Pokemon on Jerry's team there was a check for it on Eternaly's team. You know what I mean? So like. It had to
but
be
a lot of the same checks that all get chipped. Like the Servine is getting checked by like the Rapidash that's weak to rocks, and the Vibrava can keep coming in on, and the Drifblim is like gonna be able to wisp and whittle at least the Volibite and maybe the Golem too, which is huge for the Frog and the Servine and the Rotom. I just feel like Jerry's whole team like worked well together versus Eternaly's.
Yeah, I think that could just be like Jerry's team is actually a decent team. Like it's a decent offense, so it works, especially versus like a bulkier-ish style of team that Eternally brought. So yeah, that very well could have been the cohesion why I felt like Jerry looked like he was sort of outplaying the game.
Yeah, and again, I really don't mean he kind of hit buttons as a slight here because Like I explained, he just had like the offensive pressure to win this game. I think.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember eternally clicking an attacking move in that entire game.
You're
I
right.
honestly can't.
You're right. False versus Specs, I thought was very funny. False brought a very offensive Webs team, a really like weird team for him too. And Specs brought a taunt Mr. Mime to like surprise False's Smeargle turn one. Like False's Web Smeargle lead gets shut down turn one, and Specs is just like in this really good starting position, and then False just kind of played real nice. Like,
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Specs had an awful lot going for him, and False just really played this well, got up webs very early, did a lot of good pressure on the Combine Drifblim that could have been a huge pain. Even missed a gunk shot and lost some sucker 50-50s versus the Simipour to let it be like a Simipour under webs be way more threatening than it should ever be, because it's a frail mon that's not even fast anymore because webs. And like False just won off of playing better.
Yep. I was impressed that False could. That was a really big turn. One was huge for Specs.
Yeah.
Having the taunt tech, and then like taunting the Smiggle for like completely stopping False's plan from the get go. But then I felt like he didn't play aggressively enough to keep on stopping it. From Specs' perspective, but False equally played like really offensively, such that it was really difficult for Specs, like in any circumstance, to be honest.
Yeah, Specs, like, I get the attraction of setting up rocks early, but your goal. Okay, so Specs' Golem was tricked to Choice Scarf by False's Mr. Mime, and I think the turn 4, where Specs hits Stealth Rock with the Golem, was like really the start of not playing this right. Because you've got a Scarf Golem, you know False wants to get webs up, now your Golem is possibly even faster than the Smeargle with Scarf, depending on the set, but it's probably Spadef, it's not. So even then, like, you know the Smeargle is probably going to want to come in, and you Stealth Rock, which lets the Smeargle hit the Spore button, hit the Webs button, hit the Stealth Rock button. Like, it literally got up everything it wanted, and you just can't let that happen.
Yeah.
He also never went Bouffalant on the Spore, which I wasn't sure if that was like over predicting or something, but that was odd.
Yeah, I personally think Specs made a micro choke. I think we've used this term like a couple of times already, these podcasts, but yeah, I think you can't really classify what he did as a choke or like a misplay even, but it was like a play where.
No, I think it was a misplay.
You think?
I get what you mean by micro choke, where it's like it's not, overall in the long term, it really wasn't where he should have been going. But I think in this case, it's not even much of a long term thing. You do not let Smeargle sleep him on and then get up both of its hazards when you've had like this offensive momentum, at least not so early and for free, because it just puts you in such a bad situation early on. Like,
yeah, I think that's the thing. When you have offensive momentum versus an offensive team, he might be conditioned to think, okay, I have like a respite now. Like I have a few turns to like settle down, make sure I have Stealth Rocks up, and like go for a long-term win con. But when you have the offensive like impetus versus an offense team, you need to be going at attacks. Like you need to be kicking like Stone Edge, Earthquake. You need to be kicking your big heavy hitting moves, because offense won't have switch-ins for those things. So if you keep clicking it like buttons, there isn't going to be a long-term plan to be had. One piece of the puzzle to unlocking your team have to fall by. So I think maybe, it was a bit of, maybe he just hasn't played too many hard offenses to like really have that like idea in his head, like engraved into it. But yeah, that's potentially that he'll.
I don't know. That being said, it was a bit unfortunate for Specs that like Smeargle was kind of guaranteed to do some work. It shouldn't have done as much as it did. Specs needed to play better to limit the Smeargle, but like that's also partially because Smeargle was a really big problem for Specs. He didn't bring removal,
Yeah,
And he had a
was a big thing as well.
lot. There were a lot of Mons that were slower than Smeargle and complete hazard fodder.
Yeah, I do appreciate False's team as well, because he realized that he was getting seated now for his bringing fat stuff, and he also realized that Specs wasn't too much in the way of hazards control. So I do really appreciate the hyper offense, sticky web style of team. I think that was a good selection on his part.
Speaking of godlike selections, Pearl versus Raw Melon, this game was wild. This game was just...
Yeah, I'm lost for words with this game.
The absolute best thing this week was when Raw Melon tricks Pearl's Audino a choice scarf with his Rotom Frost, and then Pearl flings it away with his fling Audino. Oh my god. So Pearl brings a full stall, but like not your common like Dundee's stall, like a weirder stall that fits on a Ditto. It's got an Articuno plus Vibrava plus Altaria, like fat birdish core. Like what? I don't know. And Romelon has this like fun little Quilladin Basculin offense. That's kind of neat, I guess. I don't know. But just, my god, when the Audino flings the scarf, you're like, yeah, Pearl has some ridiculous stuff. He's using Vibrava to defog on Romelon's Gabite. He's trying to chip away at his team with Toxic and keeps defogging into the Poniard that gets the Defiant boost, but then revenge killing it with Ditto. Like, this whole thing was just so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a showcase of what Pearl is as like a player, because this is the type of thing that he likes to do. Because I was honestly questioning whether, because he showed me this team a bit prior to this week. I mean, he wanted to bring it, I think, like in the first few weeks, but he never really got the build done. But when I saw like the Fling or Dino, I was like, dude, what does this even do? And he's like, trust me, dude. When I play a Rotom Frost, you'll see what it does.
I mean, yeah.
Look at that. Like, there's a Rotom like that.
Trick can be real annoying for a stall. He'd have to keep trying to get Ditto in on the Trick, but then not on any other moves. But instead, like, specifically because he was Fling, he never had to go Ditto on the Rotom Frost, and he got to use the Ditto multiple times throughout the game to offensively pressure the SD Poniard and the Nasty Plot Mr. Mime. Like, what a tech.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah, so Pearl ends up winning. Yeah, he did get a freeze. This is one of those ones where it definitely seals a game that could have, in theory, like been in question. But I really do feel pretty confident that Pearl had the game anyway.
Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah, wacky stuff, and Pearl takes the game. Also, like a very important game. Every game for the Kinglers mattered, so that was a pretty huge win. Running down into BWP, the good old black and white, Evagero versus Rexus. I don't understand anything about Rexus's team. It had a Pineco and a Scraggy and some other weird stuff. Maybe they're not bad on their own all the time, but he also kind of just auto-lost to Stoutland and Vigoroth, and Evagero brought both of them and just won.
Yeah, I mean... I put it this way. This team, I built this team, so this is like my babies, all of them. Like
you built Rexus's team?
Scraggy is my baby.
Yeah?
Yeah, I built Rexus's team, yeah. So Pineco is my baby, and Scraggy is my baby. Scraggy is actually the best Bohemian check in the tier.
Okay, that's understandable, but the team also has an Audino.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Audino can serve multiple purposes, like keep Pineco alive, which is the brilliant thing about it. But the really unfortunate thing in this matchup was that I knew as going into this game that we wouldn't have a normal resist. So if the one normal resist in the tier, like the one normal type, the offensive normal type in the tier was Brawl, which was Stoutland, would have a rough time. And he ends up bringing Eevee brings Stoutland and then also Tentacle, which is immune to Toxic from Pineco, so you can't even pressure it offensively with hazards. In that case, so yeah, this was like every piece of bad that could have gone wrong went wrong for this team, which is unfortunate because I thought it was quite cool.
Oh, okay, because like it's the one real spinner that is just going to keep spinning away the hazards for Statland to just get to break. So yeah,
Exactly.
this matchup was a big yikes. I still don't think the Statland matchup is really up to par, even if you do have better hazard pressure. But yeah, this was just Eevee like really would have had to get locked real bad to lose this one.
Yeah, and well, I mean, she got a crit turn 3, I think, or something, like with the Stoutland coming in on the frustration on the Quanko. That was quite big. But I mean, genuinely, I don't think it mattered like one bit. It was just like a mere formality just to say that. But yeah, I think it was unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not really else much to say.
King Wynot versus CB Aaron Judge. This game I actually found pretty interesting. It was basically like it really kind of was one of those black-white games where they basically just both trade kills until one person wins with like not anything long-term like contradicting or stopping that at all. Like this really was just kills back and forth until CB Aaron Judge won. I only found it really interesting because it kind of felt like King Wynot screwed himself by setting hazards, if that makes sense. They're both trading all these kills. CB Aaron Judge makes like almost no switches this game, so the hazards end up not doing a lot except losing King Wynot momentum. So the fact that like his Drillbur and Glalie were relatively useless as like specifically hazards-oriented Pokemon really felt like what lost him the game, which isn't what you normally would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because CB Aaron Judge just brought a team which is like flat out offense, and then like he was just sort of thinking like his hazards plan was, I'm just going to pressure offensively and hopefully they don't get too many hazards up, right? Because that's how his team sort of functions. And yeah, like the jump bluff did really well in the early game to sort of prevent the Drillbur from doing too much, like getting the sleep off and then being the offensive threat that it was. Like that was huge for CB Aaron Judge.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I guess hazards made it so he couldn't switch. So he was like, okay, I won't switch, and then he just won anyway. Like he just didn't need to.
Yeah, it's just.
Tondas versus Aaron Boyer. This was a very stupid game, and I don't think we.
Let's not talk about this one.
Yeah.
This is
all right.
Looking down the line.
I forgot that this was just like the real dumb one. So yeah, DPP. It really was that stupid. Don't worry about it. Durza versus Obi. This sure was a game that happened. Durza cannot get like a clean cut game at all. Like Jesus.
Yeah. I thought I revoked his luck pass, but I mean, apparently he still has it, so I'm gonna have to look into that a bit deeper. So
yeah. He dodged a cross chop. From what I can tell, it does look like the cross chop dodge, Jesus, seems like it basically gave Durza the win where he probably would have lost, ? But I'm not like.
I'm not entirely certain that he would have lost. I think it just would have been really close.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm really stupid. Like, that was my impression after watching the game, but looking at it now, no. The cross-top dodge just, like, took it from a game that would have come down to basically a 50-50 to...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if he hadn't dodged cross-chop, it'd be Electabuzz and Sneasel versus Cacturne and Zangoose. And
so
Durza has to go Cacturne, and then it's a 50-50 on, like, if Cacturne sucker punches the Electabuzz, then Durza's gonna win. But if Cacturne sucker punches as Obi goes hard to Sneasel, then Obi wins. Yeah, okay. So it would have been a 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's unfortunate, but oh well.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess not a lot to say. It's like it would have been a 50-50, but it wasn't. General Noines versus Haste-Up. General Noines just like really got pretty lucky here. He admitted it too. He's like, I lucked the shit out of Haste-Up. Like turn 2 or something, he crit Oko's Haste-Up's Kecleon, so that wasn't a thing anymore. And then, God, what was the other one? There was something late game too that like really helped. Oh yeah, he crit Haste-Up's Ampharos to just get that out of the way, and then yeah, he already had what looked to me like a pretty decent Trick Room matchup. Haste-Up brought a Trick Room team, and General Noines had a sub-toxic Rapidash that was like really good at stalling it out. Sub-Flare Blitz Morning Sun Toxic, fun set. But yeah, those just turned into an absolute like nothing Haste-Up can do.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate, especially with the hacks. It would have been nice to see how Haste-Up could have won this game without the hacks. That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
but it was unfortunate that the hack.
You cut out, but yeah, it was unfortunate. The hacks basically just ended it. I don't know how big of a thing like lead Subtox Rapidash is. Subtox Morning Sun specifically, because Chris Loud also brought it for the very last game, which was Chris Loud versus 49. I actually think this was one of the better games we've seen, even as silly as the end was. Like I thought there were a lot of just very fun plays here. A bit of unfortunate happenings with a full para and a crit at some point, but for the most part, I thought this was actually like a really fun back and forth between two good DPP players. They both had some fun stuff. 49 had Noctillery, which I haven't really seen a lot of. Chris Loud had the Rapidash, also his Life Orb Swallow that he's known for. So some funny stuff here. But then late game, 49 wins because he brings a Regigigas that was sub Confuse Ray and gets only one self hit, but Chris Loud only had 2 Mons left, so like that one self hit was the entire margin of error needed for Regigigas to. Oh no, he got 2 self hits. I'm sorry, it was 2 self hits, which let Regigigas like get the sub up. Have a sub up as slow start ends so that the Scarf Zatu breaks the sub and then Regigigas kills it and Chris Loud's last Mon Pelipper. I don't know if sub Confuse Ray Regigigas is the most optimal thing, but gosh darn did it not end up working out for 49.
It's Power Fusion, isn't it? It's Power Fusion. Power Fusion like a team like based around Power Fusion and then you confuse Ray with Reggie.
Oh, the rest of the team was Paralysis Spam. Yeah, no, it was T-Wave Octillery and Static Ampharos and T-Wave Probopass as well. So, like, I assume that was why the confusion was there. Like, the Confused Ray was there, but still, just, like, a really funny setup. Because looking at 49's team, I thought it might almost be like a semi-trick room. Like, you've got Octillery plus Marowak, and then, like, have one setter, and then the rest of it's, like, more offensive or something. But no, it was a Regigigas setup.
Interesting.
It didn't even face
like
Paralyzed Mons.
Yeah, I like the idea, generally speaking. Like, Power Fusion with Reggie as, like, the late game win con. That sounds scary. I like that.
Yeah, it was funny. It was genuinely interesting, and yeah, I liked it. And 49 pulled out the big victory. So yeah, that's our big week 5 wrap up. Kinglers and Victory Bells moving on to semis. Honestly, because we're not going to record till like this series is done, so I'm gonna be completely honest. I really don't see Victory Bells losing. Kinglers have been like very on and off, and just if you compare the matchups, Victory Bells look so much stronger. Like,
yeah,
every game is either advantage Victory Bells or 50-50. I would be genuinely surprised if Kinglers made it to finals or even a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say some people are going to have to do some upsets, especially the old gens people. Like, I yeah, you need to see like I need to see some upsets in order for the Kinglers for me to foreseeably see the Kinglers coming out on top in this one. Like there's a steep contrast between the Vickies, who are like second on merit, versus the Kinglers, who could have came third or last, like based on how they played, like on that last week.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I don't think the Kinglers necessarily deserve to be there over anybody else. They just happen to be in this position, so they have to make the most of it. Simple as that.
For sure. And it is a testament to how close the teams are that, like, even though I think Victory Bells look way stronger overall, it would only really take, like, 1.5 quote-unquote upsets to get it to a tie game. Like, I don't think Pearl beating False would be a big upset. I don't think Lax beating Robert Alphonse would be a big upset. Like, they'd both be, like, 50-50 games, I think, but they wouldn't be crazy upsets. Serene Grace versus Aaron Judge, I think, would only be like a 50-50 upset. Aaron Judge has not looked like that strong. So then you only really need one other game, and bam, tie. Like, that's just kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, it should be... It will be interesting to see how the Victory Bells prepare for this week. I wonder, like, how safely they're going to prepare and how, like, unsafely the Kinglers are going to prepare. As a result of that. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. I hope the Kinglers don't play it safe and just go out, like, try and go out in a blaze of glory and try and do something, rather than, like, you know, bleed out versus better players. Like, I need to see some, like, you know, some crazy shit.
Some fire builds, some of that hot stuff. Yeah, that'll... yeah. This is the time to have fun, because really next week is when you got to buckle down, like, really just go absolutely nuts to try to beat the Dens. Because your team has just been by far the most dominant this PUPL. I mean, every other team's win loss is like the Victory Bells are 22-18. That's pretty respectable. The Kinglers are 18-22. They have a negative win loss and they're still in semis. Victory Bells and your team are the only teams with the positive win loss. They're 22-18, and then you're out here with this 30-10. Winning 3/4 of your games, going 5-0 in pools. Like, whichever team makes it to finals, that's when they're really going to have to step up their game in order to not just get blown away.
Yeah, for sure. I think Keith, I was talking to, and I was saying that if he won his game versus Feli, we'd have single-digit losses, which would be, I'm pretty sure, unprecedented. I'm pretty sure nobody's ever done that, which would have been epic, but, you know, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, if you don't win, it doesn't really matter. So yeah,
30-10 is more clean numbers anyway.
Exactly. So we did it for the cleanness of the numbers. Yeah, it'd be a good game with whoever makes it to finals. Obviously, we expect to play the Victory Bells.
Yeah, for sure.
In the finals, but it should be a good game regardless of who we play.
Yeah, I agree. So. One last thing before we head out. Jed's Gimmick Corner, baby. Want to drop some flame sets on us? The Fling Odno.
Okay. So it was initially going to be Reflect, Z Celebrate, Glaceon, but Reflect and Z Celebrate aren't allowed together. So I got extremely sad and I threw something. So we're going to have to do with something different. I was going to put Eject Button Sableye again because that sets fire, but obviously we've done that already. So Tailwind Dramper, I like Tailwind Dramper. I think it's a good way of it's the balanced version of Executor Alola. It's how I'd have to describe it.
You only get 3 turns to use Tailwind, though, right? As opposed to Trick Room's 4.
Is it 4? I think it's 4 or 3. Yeah, I think it's 3 actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 3 turns as opposed to Executor's 4, and obviously the Grass Stab is a little bit better. The Bulk is a little bit better. The not being weak to Mach Punch is a little bit better. So I don't think it's gonna be. Yeah, I think balanced version of Executor is definitely.
Yeah, how I pictured it working is in the mid-game scenario where you need to like pressure a defensive core that might have like speed advantage on a Dramper. You can um, use Drampa and that effect as like a mid game breaker rather than like using it early game to try and
Yeah.
dent teams. You can do that just as well with the Z move. And then also have Tailwind, and then it function really well as a mid game breaker as well.
Yeah, what I'm picturing is like they've gotten a lull in Sand Slash. You're like, well, I kind of want to do breaking, not just immediately get forced out by that. So you set up the Tailwind. Now you're actually going to be faster than it can't come right in.
Exactly.
Obviously, if they've got anything with a decent amount of speed or a Scarfer, they're going to be able to force you out. But it lets you control what they're switching into, which can definitely get used properly. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you picture the Alola Slash 1v1, like you can imagine them switching out into like Electros and then trying to pivot back into Alola Slash when the Tailwind dies. But if you click Fire Blast and then click Dragonium Z Draco Meteor, that's going to do a dump trunk a lot to the Electros.
A dump trunk?
A dump trunk.
All
I
right.
want to say a dump trunk.
Okay, I think we're too tired. Can't even talk. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening to our last little recap here. Next week will be finals. We'll talk a little bit about Open, too, since we didn't really touch on Open at all. That'll be more of a topic. And, thanks for sticking around. We'll see you next week.